Good evening, visitors, and welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Gerard Pratt, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Commander Lee Pritchard. We warmly welcome the family of Private James Rogerson, whose story will be told shortly. This evening, we're honoured to welcome Second World War veteran Mr. Robert Hancock. Bob enlisted in the Australian Army on the 2nd of December 1942 and served with the 2nd 1st Dental Unit for almost 4 years. His skills as a dental technician took him to Darwin, Morotai Island and Borneo. Earlier this year, Bob turned 100 years of age. Bob, we thank you for your service and for joining us here this evening. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those who are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. Australia's Federation Guard is the tri-service ceremonial unit of the Australian Defence Force. They provide a ceremonial presence at civil and military events and during visits to Australia by foreign dignitaries. The Guard will now dismount the catapult party from the tomb of the unknown Australian soldier. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem.
Careful party, attention! Careful party, preserve arms!
Australians, all let us rejoice, for we are one and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil, our home is but by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty, rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains, then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
Careful party, shoulder arms! Careful party, order arms!
If able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through until the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private James Rogerson. James Rogerson was born in Glasgow, Scotland, on the 14th of April 1904, the youngest son of John and Mary Rogerson. Growing up, he had three sisters, Elizabeth, Mary and Janet, and three surviving brothers, John, Thomas and Ralph. James and his siblings attended the Rutherglen School, and James went on to work with his father and brothers making trunks for the family business, Rogerson & Co. Trunk Manufacturers. Most of the family emigrated to Australia in 1926 and 1927, with James, his elder siblings Elizabeth and Ralph, and their parents arriving in Melbourne in February 1927. After relocating to Adelaide, South Australia, James and Ralph worked in an ice carting business. James Rogerson enlisted in the 2nd Australian Imperial Force on the 27th of May 1940. After training at Woodside Camp, east of Adelaide, he was given a period of pre-embarkation leave in September. Private Rogerson embarked on the troop ship Mauritania on the 20th of October, bound for overseas service. Arriving at Palestine in November, he continued training. He was briefly hospitalised, suffering from dysentery in April 1941, but was back on duty and joined his unit, the 2nd 27th Battalion, in May 1941. Raised from volunteers from South Australia, the 2nd 27th had returned from bolstering the defences along the Egypt-Libya frontier against an expected German attack. In Palestine, Rogerson and his comrades prepared for their first offensive operation, the invasion of Syria and Lebanon, which began on the 8th of June. Rogerson was wounded on the 14th of June and was evacuated for treatment, spending some time with an infantry training battalion before returning to his battalion in mid-August. By then, Vichy forces had surrendered and the 2nd 27th undertook garrison duties near Beirut and in the Tripoli sector, remaining there until January 1942. Having been admonished for an act to the prejudice of good military order, Rogerson embarked for Australia towards the end of January, travelling via Bombay and arriving in late March. In April, he was found absent without leave and confined to barracks for a week as punishment. After a period of home leave, he attended carrier pigeon school. It wasn't long before he and his unit were back in action. Rogerson embarked on the 7th of August 1942, arriving in Port Moresby, New Guinea, a week later. Japanese forces had crossed the Owen Stanley Range via the Kokoda Trail and were now threatening to capture Port Moresby. Having been held in reserve at Moresby, Rogerson and his comrades in the 2nd 27th moved north up the trail during the first days of September, where they joined the Maroubra Force. In an effort to stem the Japanese advance, the 2nd 27th Battalion was committed to the fighting on the 6th of September, taking up a defensive blocking position on the foremost end of Mission Ridge. Over the next 2 days, the battalion held off strong frontal attacks by the Japanese before forming the brigade rearguard, when outflanked, they were forced to withdraw. On the 7th of September 1942, the 2nd 27th came under increasing pressure as the enemy sent forces down the trail. During the morning, they were subjected to fire from a mountain gun or mortar, as well as accurate sniper fire. At some stage during the day, Private James Rogerson was killed in action. He was one of 10 members of the battalion who died that day. After the war, his nephew was told by some of James's mates that James had been shot in the head and died instantly. Initially buried at Ofogi Cemetery, his remains were later reinterred in Port Moresby Bomana War Cemetery, where they lie today under the inscription chosen by his grieving family, one of the best. James Rogerson was 38 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left, among nearly 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private James Rogerson, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
If able, please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
Rifle party, shoulder, on!
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Helpful party! Reserve! Arms! Helpful party! Shoulder! Arms!
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget.
Helpful party! In one! Turn! Helpful party! Quick! Up!
We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières, or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support of the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.